On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
Nuneaton, the jewel of the South Midlands, the town who gave us such great men as George Eliot and Larry Grayson, the throbbing heart of this teeming metropolis, the pearl of the CV13 postcode, down by the roundabout and up the one-way system, is Nuneaton Town Hall, where we can find none other than Nuneaton's Mr. Entertainment.
Hello ladies and gentlemen and boys and girls, I'm Barry Tadcaster and this is my friend Ken Jevons, who is an Orang Pendek. Hello, my name is Ken Jevons and I am an Orang Pendek. Unlike the other Orang Pendeks, I do not come from the Indonesian island of Sumatra. I come from the London borough of Lewisham, where I am employed by Lewisham Town Council as an ombudsman.
What's down for this week then, Kerr? Oh Barry, have we got a treat. We have got Pliny the Elder, and he is going to be telling us how the dragon is generated in Ethiopia and India, and how his crest is his pride, and when drawn up from his burrow he will fly into the air and become ardent.
Such erudition and classical scholarship. Boris Johnson would be so proud. Well done to everybody involved.
I really like the old credits.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of On the Track. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and every Saturday afternoon and Wednesday evening I bring you a potpourri of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. Quite often it's at this point in the show that I show you a piece of video I've concocted in order to illustrate the concept of surreality. The video usually includes disturbing images, moving footage of the late great Ernest Borgnine, and some funny noises. But this week I've got something totally and utterly surreal to show you that truly I don't think any of you are going to believe. This is a giant African land snail. I've always been fond of these. I kept them as pets when I was a boy in Hong Kong, where they lived as an invasive species. They had been either accidentally or semi-deliberately introduced to China in the 1930s, and by the time I was there 30 years later, they had made themselves totally at home and were a common sight, especially during the rainy season. But look at this. Over to my old friend Mark Rains, who has got a very peculiar story for us all.
Two deadly monster snails have been found crawling along a busy street in the middle of London. The 8-inch creatures were dumped at a bus stop in a letters-filled cardboard box. But the giant African land snails, which can carry potential fatal parasites, escaped and were spotted roaming the pavement. Eyewitness who saw them near London Bridge railway station said they were the size of my arms. I thought I was seeing things. Everyone was wondering where they came from, but no one knew what to do or wanted to touch them. The mollusks, which feed almost continuously, are among the world's most dangerous and racist species. They pose a serious health risk to humans as they harbour rat lungworm, which triggers deadly meningitis. A pair were collected by wildlife volunteer Beth Chivervale, who took them home in a damp tale. She said, "They would have died crawling along the streets in this heat. They're living with me in a proper sealed box until I can find someone to adopt them."
It is certainly true that they do, or at least can, harbour all sorts of unpleasant parasites, but they're also widely kept as pets, presumably the domestic stock from which the pet trade draw their creatures has been checked and treated for the parasites. However, one never knows in these increasingly peculiar days. I do hope that they do get adopted by a happy, good home and they go on to live for many more years to come, because they can live up to 10 years. They are wonderful creatures, and if you've never kept them as pets, I actually rather recommend it. They are very, very cute. And I hope you agree with me that that was a particularly surreal story. But back to what passes for normality in this show, I want to introduce you to another old mate of mine, somebody whose work I have followed for some years now. His name's Steve Andrews. He lives in Portugal, and a few weeks ago we covered his new book about butterflies and moths in an on-the-track extra. But I always think that this show can be improved with the addition of somebody with a bright green beard with a butterfly in it.
I had a butterfly on my beard, oh yeah. I had a butterfly on my beard, oh yeah. Well, I had a butterfly on my beard, and it looked pretty strange, it looked pretty weird. I had a butterfly on my beard, oh yeah.
Well, it's very kind of you to give me an interview today, Steve. I've been looking forward to this. Tell me a bit more about your new book, because I think that book is really good.
Well, you're more than welcome, John, and thank you for endorsing my book and reviewing it. And I've got a copy here, of course, so there it is. And your endorsement is on it, and there it is, my butterfly book. Tell you a bit about it. Okay, well, as you know, I've been fascinated by nature like yourself all my life. So butterflies and moths are a very big part of my world. In fact, I often rear them here. Although this year has actually been terrible. It's just simply been too hot. And I've temporarily given up on doing what I normally do. Although I've got milkweed, as it says here, on my shirt. But the book came about because my publisher, Moon Books, I put the idea to them. So it was actually my idea. I put the idea that we could have a series of the magic of, and then, fill in the rest of it. And I put forward the idea, the magic of butterflies and moths. And there is a magic. Everybody is fascinated by the magic of the transformation, of the caterpillar to the chrysalis or pupa, and then to the adult insect. And my publisher said, yes, okay, we like the idea. And so that's how this book started. And for me, it was actually quite easy to write, because I already know a tremendous amount about butterflies and moths. But also I was researching, and I've got some good books here, and I'll just show you this one. Like this book, which I've mentioned in my book, in the bibliography, is an exceptional guide to butterflies. And I learned a lot from this book. Because I had the idea, I thought, look, there's got to be butterflies in the extreme north that maybe I don't even really know much about. So let's find out about those butterflies. And indeed there are butterflies in Lapland and Siberia and Alaska and places we don't associate with butterflies. You think, oh gosh, well, maybe today, with climate change, you get warm weather up there, but It used to be freezing cold most of the time. It used to be snow, ice. And you don't think of butterflies in conditions like this, but indeed they do live there. And for me, what the point that I want to make is that butterflies are found all around the world. Like they've colonized and adapted to just about every habitat, just like we have, just like humans have. So you can find, butterflies in the polar regions. You can find butterflies in desert regions and the tropics, and also like in the cooler areas. And so that was something that I wanted to say. And I also wanted to talk in my book from like a personal viewpoint, kind of my story, like, how I followed butterflies through my life and things I've learned about them and surprising things, Like yourself, John, I'm sure you've learned like a lot of really surprising stuff about butterflies and moths when you were a boy,
Of course.
And so I included some of those insects, like things like the vapour moth, how the female, she can't fly and she can't eat. And when you look at it, you think, gosh, how can this be like a moth? But it is.
If I were to ask you what is the defining characteristic of butterflies and moths, most of you would answer their wings, which are in often cases incredibly beautiful. But, like Steve points out, the vapour moth is one of the moth species in which the females don't have any wings. Or indeed they do, but they're tiny little vestigial bags here. They don't have any wings, and they don't eat because they don't have mouth parts. Also, quite a few other moths don't eat as adults, which I've always thought is really quite vicious of Mother Nature, to make it that the adult's only job is to get up, mate, lay eggs, and die, which is, well, it's pretty nasty, isn't it?
And there were so many like fascinating things about these insects that I thought I would just like to share with the world. So that's how it came about.
This is a very crass question, but what's your favourite butterfly or moth species?
That's a difficult one. But I'm going to go with the one that maybe most people know. I think most people, probably the most famous butterfly in the world is this butterfly in my beard, the monarch butterfly. There it is on my shirt. And I think it's going to be the monarch, because my reasons, not only because it's kind of world famous and it does this amazing migration in America, but also because I've spent so much time with this butterfly. I was living in Tenerife for 9 years, and I spent probably 7 of those years, helping monarch butterflies over there. And then I'd come over here to Portugal, and again, I've been looking after monarchs over here. And I've learned a lot about them. And I've also seen like how amazing the drive is. I'll call it the drive in the female to find the right plants for her, to lay her eggs on. And I give a story, I think, in my book about a monarch butterfly in Tenerife that my cat caught. And I oh gosh, no. And I went to try and rescue the butterfly. And first of all, I thought it was dead because it wasn't moving. And they can play dead. That's something I learned. But I looked and I thought, oh gosh, it's got a wing missing. This is terrible. And it's not moving. I'm just going to just put it up there on the wall. And I did. And miraculously, it recovered and it flew away. And I thought, gosh, it can fly even though it's got 3 wings. Then I moved my milkweed plants up onto the wall as well. I thought, okay, if any more monarchs come here, they're going to be a bit safer up there, because my cat, she's too fat. She can't jump up on the wall up there, and they should be safe. But what happened then was, in about half an hour later, this is like miraculous. A 3-winged monarch butterfly was back at the milkweed plant, and she was laying her eggs. And I will always remember that. And this went on for maybe another week after. Every day I'd see the three-winged monarch butterfly back on the top of the wall, at the milkweed plants up there. And that to me showed like how much the female, will risk her life to try and do what she is supposed to do, lay her eggs on milkweed plants. So I told that story, and I like to share stories, from my life of experiences I've had, because I think it's a good way of getting other people to understand, not just why I love butterflies and moths, but also like how intricate it all is, and how incredible and how magical it is. So that's for me the monarch.
One of the things about monarchs that totally intrigues me is how did a butterfly, for which these massive migrations were one of the most defining things about the species, how did they then form non-migratory populations? It's like they overturned one of their most defining factors and did something completely different, and that fascinates the hell out of me.
Likewise, John, I was amazed by that, and when I went to live in Tenerife, I saw the non-migratory monarchs living there, and I came to understand it better, and I came to, if you like, to theorize that the monarch butterfly is also known as the wanderer, and I've seen them wander. When I used to rear like a lot of them, some of them would stay in my area because I would know they were mine, if you like, mine in inverted commas, and they would be flying around the apartment block I was in and in the village. But most of them would go, and I wouldn't know where they'd go, but they'd go somewhere. So what I kind of learned from that was that a proportion stays in the area they're in, and the others wander. And we do know that the monarch butterfly will wander across a sea. It will take to the oceans and fly, and that in itself is amazing. But nobody knows for sure how the monarch butterflies originally got to the Canary Islands. It's possible that they came over on a boat. It's possible that they came over from Africa. We don't really know, but anyway, they got there. And what is amazing in itself, and is to do with how everything is so intricate and so incredibly set up that they need milkweed plants, and there were no milkweed plants. So if they'd arrived earlier, it would have been a failure because the females couldn't have found the plants they needed. But sailors who were traveling the world in hundreds of years ago, I don't know for sure, maybe the 1800s or something like that, were bringing plants back to the Canary Islands that they were finding in tropical areas and other subtropical areas. And so lots of plants that were not native to the Canary Islands ended up there, including the tropical milkweed. And that was it. That was the key to success for the first female monarch butterfly that arrived in the Canary Islands. However she got there, she found the tropical milkweed plant, she could lay her eggs, and that started the ball rolling. Now, what must have happened at some point after that was that because we do not get severe winters, you do get snow. You get snow high up on the mountains for sure, and you get freezing temperatures up there. But all around the coastal areas of all the Canary Islands, it doesn't freeze. So the tropical milkweed was able to grow, and it was started to be grown in parks and in gardens. And it gave the monarch butterfly somewhere it could carry on its life cycle. The females could find the plants and lay their eggs. The caterpillars then hatch out. They'd form the chrysalis eventually then turn into butterflies, and the whole thing could start again. But they didn't need to get through a terrible winter. So there was no need for them to make this ridiculous migration, thousands of miles all the way down to the south. And so they stopped doing it. But at what point that was worked out and how, it's hard to get your head around it, I mean, I'm just trying to visualize now, like, the first monarch female, she's got to the Canary Islands. We're not even sure which one. She's found a milkweed plant. She's laid her eggs. They've gone through the life cycle. The first monarch butterflies have hatched out on a Canary Island. How do they know, whether the winter is going to be terrible or not? And how does I don't know. I don't know how. But what we do know is at some point in time, the monarch butterflies in the Canary Islands stopped the migrations. They became resident monarchs that breed all year round. But there's a disadvantage with this. But a lot of people think that monarch butterflies live a long time. I'm sure, as you know, John, the ones that live from the fall through to the spring, yes, they do. In America, they've got all the colder months, if you like, to be dormant, if they make it to their roosting places in the south. But the ones that are born in the spring and the summer, they don't. They've only got a few weeks. And that is the case of the ones in the Canary Islands. They only live a few weeks. So that in itself is something else that is amazing, that the ones that have to get through the winter are given a longer period of life because it's necessary to get them through the cold months. The ones that are living in the warm climate, they don't need that because they can do their thing. They can find the plants they need, they can lay their eggs, the caterpillars can hatch, they can grow, they can turn into chrysalis, they can change into butterflies to start the cycle again. And it carries on generation after generation. And it's amazing. It's amazing how somehow all of that comes about.
Louis, my producer, is always telling me that I overthink things, and I'm sure if we were able to consult them, both my first wife Alison and my second wife Karina would have agreed wholeheartedly. And I think I've been overthinking things with the monarch. Because I saw the Canadian end of the Great Monarch Migration back in 1979, I have always had it in my head that these enormous migrations are hardwired into the monarch psyche, if butterflies have psyches, that it is something integral to the species, whereas it may just be that they decide to move south when the weather gets colder and when they get the few early intimations that winter may be on its way. And if those intimations don't come, then they don't migrate. And it's as simple as that. And I really am kicking myself and feeling very stupid that I hadn't thought of that. But something else about monarchs that my discussion with Steve has thrown up is the fact that they throw out their wanderers, their outliers, to go and find new territories. And how until the 18th century or whenever there weren't any milkweed plants on the Canary Islands. Well, there are no milkweed plants in the British wild flora, and until recently they've only been rarely kept in greenhouses. But now milkweed plants are on sale quite commonly in garden centres and even supermarkets. So I wonder, each year we have a few vagrant monarchs turn up, usually in the autumn months, and I wonder whether now milkweeds are being kept more widely as garden plants in the UK, I wonder if monarchs may begin to be resident here, and presumably because the weather is too cold in the winter, they will be the ones who are migrating south to the non-migratory populations in Spain, Portugal, Madeira and the Canary Islands. interesting stuff. Now, there's a lot more for me and Steve to talk about, so I have had to cut the interview in half, but we will be back next week when we'll be talking about swallowtails and all sorts of other things of great interest.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, wants me to remind you, always press the notification bell. Otherwise you won't be told when there's a new show to watch. And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it? And that's about it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Big thank yous go out as always to Louis and to Graham, but for whom I would not be able to do any of this stuff. And to my special guests and contributors this week, Mark Rains and Steve Andrews. We will be hearing more from Steve next episode, and I'm sure it won't be long before we hear more from Mark, because he's a good fellow and he's always doing jolly nice things for the CFZ. I hope you enjoyed it, and like I said, I'll be back next Saturday, and it's really nice to be able to say for once what's going to be in next Saturday. Next Saturday's show features, as I've said, Steve Andrews, and it also features my old mate Mike Davis with the sad tale of two dead zebra finches. And what's happening on Wednesday, I don't know. I'm just about to start filming it and I haven't decided, but we'll find something out sooner rather than later. Oh no, I remember, I know exactly what's happening on Wednesday. Am I going to tell you? Well, I told you last Wednesday, so I'm not telling you now. You might as well wait and find this as a surprise. So, on Wednesday, I'll be here talking about something I'm not going to tell you, electric eels. And next Saturday, I'll be back with Zara and Zen and some swallowtails. So until then, be seeing you.